An old man collapsed beside his Harley. Minutes later, 70 Hell's Angels blocked the highway. The highway wound between redwood giants, their shadows slicing sunlight into ribbons of molten gold. The wind tasted of pine, salt, and stories too old for paper. Earl Matt, 63, rode his Harley with the slow grace of a man who had made peace with noise. Every mile of asphalt beneath his tires whispered back decades of war zones, roadhouses, and empty beds that had forgotten his name. He wasn't chasing distance anymore. He was holding on to it. Before we start the story, tell us where in the world you're watching this from. And if you enjoy our stories, please consider subscribing to our channel Bikers Hype. Don't forget to hit the hype button, share the video, and comment below if you love Hell's Angels. The road curled upward, veins of tar glistening in the afternoon sun. His reflection flickered on the chrome like a ghost in motion. Halfway through the ridge climb, his chest tightened, sharp, unfamiliar, relentless. The world tilted, the Harley wobbled, kissed the guardrail, and came to rest in a hiss of gravel. Earl's boots found the earth. He tried to breathe, failed, dropped to one knee. Far below, the Pacific glimmered like a secret. He clutched the handlebar as his vision tunneled to black. Somewhere above him, a lone crow screamed, the only witness. Then came the growl, low, layered, relentless. 1 Harley, then 5, then 70. Chapter 1. The angels of redwood chrome streaked between the trees like firelight. 70 engines filled the valley, thunder cracking between the redwoods. Earl blinked once before the darkness claimed him, but he heard them, voices of thunder, familiar in rhythm if not in face. Hell's Angels, Redwood Charter. The bikes fanned out across the road, tires crunching gravel. The lead rider swung his leg over, boots thudding against the dirt. His helmet visor caught shards of sun. "Medic now," he barked. 2 men ran forward, cutting through the rumble. They knelt beside the old biker, fingers searching for a pulse. "Thin," one said, "but there." The leader crouched beside him, glove on Earl's shoulder. "Stay with me, brother." His name was Cole Redding, road captain, mid-30s, shoulders built like the mountains he rode. His voice carried command, but not arrogance. Earl's eyes fluttered open, pupils swimming. "You with the Redwood boys?" he rasped. Cole nodded. Earl managed a crooked grin. "Was before half of you were born." Cole's smile flickered beneath the visor. "Then you're not a stranger." He turned to the others. "Block both lanes." Engines repositioned, tires shrieking on asphalt. To outsiders, it looked like a siege. To them, it was a promise. Nobody passes till the old man rides again. They carried Earl into the support van, laying him on a bed of folded leather jackets. Cole held his wrist, counting beats the way soldiers count seconds in a firefight. "Family we can call?" Earl shook his head weakly. "All buried." Cole's jaw tightened. "Not all." He looked toward the ridgeline. "My dad rode with you once." "Tucson, 92. Said an Earl Matt dragged him out of a ditch after a shootout." Earl's breath hitched. "Ray Reading?" "Yeah," Cole said softly. "He was my old man." Recognition flickered in Earl's fading eyes. "You, his boy?" Cole nodded. "Guess it's my turn to pull you out." Outside, 70 Harleys formed a steel barricade across the mountain pass. The air buzzed with idling engines and unspoken prayer. 15 minutes later, sirens echoed up the road. The paramedics froze when they saw the wall of bikes. Cole walked out to meet them, palms open. "Cardiac. Still breathing," he said. The medic hesitated. "You guys—" "His club?" Cole nodded. "We're his family." They loaded Earl into the ambulance. Before the doors shut, Earl caught Cole's hand. "Don't let them bury me alone," he whispered. Cole's grip was steady. "Brother, you're riding home in thunder." The ambulance pulled away. 70 bikes ignited behind it, roaring, relentless. To passing drivers, it looked like war. To the angels, it was love in motion. Redwood General Hospital rose from a grove of second-growth pines like a box of white light. In the late afternoon haze, it looked less like a building and more like a truce, between the broken and the hands that tried to mend them. The ambulance cut its siren at the curb. The doors flew open. Boots hit asphalt. Words like paddles. They wheeled Earl through automatic doors that breathed out recycled chill. Fluorescence bit the edges off everything, fingers, faces, fear. A nurse clipped a monitor to his finger. Another shaved a small patch on his chest with a disposable razor and pressed down cold pads that looked like moons. The screen found a rhythm. The room exhaled. Cole stood just outside the threshold, helmet hooked in 2 fingers, visor still down like a knight who hadn't decided if the room deserved his face.
He didn't pace.
He anchored. When a doctor shouldered past and said, "Family waits in chairs," Cole replied, quiet and sure. "I'm not leaving him." "Club member?" the doctor asked, already halfway inside the door. "Brother?" Cole said. The words seemed to land in a place the doctor understood, or at least respected. "Stay out of the team's way," he said, and disappeared into the glow. Outside, the Redwood charter lined the curb in a half-moon of steel and patience. Engines ticked as they cooled, a constellation of settling metal, tink, ping, hush. Locals had gathered behind a yellow rope that an overworked security guard had found in a supply closet. Phones lifted, lenses hungry. The angels ignored them. They spoke softly, if at all. A few prayed in a way that didn't look like prayer. Eyes on their boots, lips moving, hands folded in jackets. Wolf, beard like a storm cloud and knuckles roadmap scarred, passed coffee in paper cups. Diesel, the youngest, tattoos still bright, eyes still new to sorrow, watched the doors as if he could will them open with attention alone. Lacey, co-owner of the mill and patch-wearer by right, stood shoulder to shoulder with the men, chin high, the kind of presence that reroutes a fight before it starts. Inside, Earl floated in and out of corridors he didn't recognize. A ceiling track light slid above him like a slow comet. He counted the seconds between the beeps because numbers stayed put when everything else went slippery. In one lucid drift, he saw a desert road under a sky so big it threatened to tip. Tucson, 92. Gasoline air on a hot night. The snap roll of gunfire that sounded like bottle rockets until it didn't. Ray Reading's boot protruding from the ditch like a gravestone with a shoelace. Earl's hands around Ray's armpits, hauling dead weight that refused to be dead. The haze of blood and dust. The taste of fear when it backs down and calls you sir. When he came back to fluorescent reality, there was a nurse, Filipina, late 30s, hair braided and coiled like a crown, adjusting his oxygen. Her badge said Maria. Her hands were the kind that could have hushed a riot. "Mr. Matt," she said, "you're not dying on my shift." He would have laughed if his chest weren't a room on fire. Instead, he let the sound rattle in his throat. "Ask the engine," he rasped. She smiled in a way that people do when they've heard 1,000 last jokes and still choose to like the next one. "Vitals are stabilizing," she told the room, and the room believed her. Through the door's glass, Earl saw Cole, finally unhelmeted. He was all planes and edges, hair close-cropped, eyes old. The kind of old that comes from holding other men's fear long enough to take its shape. Cole's fist rested against the doorframe, not knocking, not asking. Just there. A hinge. "Let him in," Earl managed. Maria nodded, held up a hand to the team, and cracked the door. Cole came in like a tide, controlled but with pressure behind it. He took the chair, set the helmet on his lap, and folded his hands over it. Not touching Earl, not yet, as if truth needed permission. "You're not buried," Cole said softly. "We don't bury our own alone." Earl's mouth found a weak grin. "You Ray's boy?" "Yeah." Cole glanced at the monitor, then back. "He told me about you like other men talk about church. Said you dragged him out by the collar and called him an idiot, then made him a sandwich." "Didn't make the sandwich," Earl said. "Stole it. From who?" "Didn't ask." Earl looked past Cole, through the door, at the blur of jackets gathered beyond the glass. "All them yours?" "They're all his," Cole said, and Earl understood. A young resident stepped in with a tablet. He said words like troponin and ischemia and intervention. He drew diagrams in the air and in the margins of the chart with a blunt finger. He had the flat, sleep-deprived confidence of a man who had stood at the river's edge and decided the river was wrong. "Cath Labs prepped," the resident said. "We're going up through the radial. Stent if the lesion allows." "He's a fighter. We've got a shot." "Radial," Earl muttered. "Means I can still shift." Cole smiled despite the terror walking circles in his chest. "We'll teach you lefty." They wheeled Earl again, this time toward an elevator that smelled like lemon and the ghost of lunches. As the doors parted on the second floor, Earl felt the world narrow into 2 rails, the gurney beneath him and the voice beside him. "You're not alone," Cole said, and made it true by saying it like a fact, not a wish. The cath lab was cold and full of starship noises. Masked faces hovered. A tech with shoe covers called him sir and meant it. They placed a tent of blue over his chest, left his hand free enough to squeeze. He squeezed. He imagined it was a throttle. His heart stuttered. The machines turned that stutter into a night sky written in green. Somewhere in the middle of the sterile ballet, the cardiologist said, "Almost there," and someone else said, "Wires good." And from a great distance, Earl heard a sound that was not mechanical but deeply human, the sound a room makes when it admits it might like you. A warmth flooded his arm. A pressure bloomed and eased. The green sky smoothed into a highway. A nurse wiped his brow with gauze that smelled faintly of peppermint. "You're a stubborn man," she said. "Don't change." Back on the floor, Maria tucked him into a room with a window that cut the redwood tree line into a postcard. She propped the window an inch despite a sign that said not to, and Pine sighed into the antiseptic. Cole sat again. The chair learned his shape. He checked his phone and found no news worth the name. He read earlier messages anyway. "Wolf, we're here till they make us trees. Lacey, the town's watching. Make them see. Diesel, is he gonna pull through, Cap?" Cole typed nothing back, and everything he had went to being a stillness Earl could lean against without leaning. Night fell like the end of a track. Slow, metal on metal, sparks, then a hush. The angels rotated in shifts that were not shifts but instinct. 3 at the curb, 2 at the door, 1 by the desk with a pen in his fist that the security guard discovered wrote beautifully. Coffee turned into soup, turned into black bag donations for the rural clinic that didn't yet know the mountain loved it. Reporters came and framed their questions like traps. "Is this an occupation? Are you intimidating the staff? What about your past?" Wolf said, "Our past includes sandwiches," and kept eating his. Lacey smiled with steel. "If you're looking for a riot, try the cafeteria microwave at 6 p.m. The footage ran at 11 p.m. anyway, and people at home saw men beneath leather and decided to go to bed a little less certain about the stories they'd been sold. Around 2 in the morning, a highway patrol cruiser idled at the curb. The officer inside watched the curve of bikes and the men inside the curve. She was middle-aged, hair gray at the temples, eyes that had seen everything except maybe this. She rolled her window down. "You blocking traffic?" she asked. Wolf leaned down. "We're opening veins." The officer barked a laugh she hadn't used in a month. "Keep the ambulance lane clear," she said. And Wolf pointed to a wide gap like a smile at the curb. At 3, rain found the town in thin, patient needles. It beaded on leather and grew into constellations on tanks. The men zipped jackets, set their hats backward, and kept standing. Diesel offered his own jacket to a nurse going off shift who had forgotten hers. She objected. He insisted. The camera a stranger held across the street caught the exchange, and somewhere online a comment thread about savages died of embarrassment. Inside, Earl dreamed the loud, soft dreams of morphine and memory. In one, he was 20 and thin as a wire, eyes so bright they might cut you. He was in a cheap motel in Fayetteville, stitching a patch onto a vest by lamplight, pricking his finger and sucking the blood and laughing because the pain made him feel built. In another, he was 40 and tired and holding a child who had his mother's ears and nobody's last name. He smelled shampoo and cigarette smoke and a brand new promise that didn't know yet it would be dropped on the side of some road. He turned his face away from that one before it could finish. Just before dawn, the rain quit the way drummers quit. One last insistence, then a crisp silence. The world tilted toward gray. Maria checked the lines, the monitor, the bag that dripped medicine with a name that sounded like a jazz musician. She left the light low. On her way out, she drew the curtain just enough for Cole to see the new day trying its luck through the trees. "You should sleep," she told Cole. "I will," he lied. And she let him. At 6, Earl stirred, found the world again face first. He moved his tongue and discovered thirst like a new religion. "Easy," Cole said, offering a straw like a treaty. Earl drank. Water made a quiet storm in him. "You stayed," Earl said, voice paper thin. Cole glanced at the door, at the men beyond, at the curb where Chrome kept its vigil. "We stay. That your rule or your habit?" "Both," Cole said. But the rule got born today. He told Earl about the line of bikes, the wall across the pass, the way traffic had slowed and the mountain had listened. He told him about the medic's eyes and the word family, and the long tail of siren echoing down to the Pacific like a braided prayer. He told him about the night and the rain and the moment the highway patrol smiled. "We put it in writing," Cole said, reaching into his cut and sliding out a folded paper softened by jacket heat. He smoothed it on his knee. Emergency road closure, internal protocol. Earl lifted an eyebrow. You boys making law now? Not law. Cole's mouth quirked. Liturgy. He read it low. Any rider goes down on Redwood Pass, we hold the line until he's safe or the medics wave us off. We block traffic with our bodies and our bikes. We speak soft. We keep the ambulance lane holy. No horns, no threats. Engines idle like prayer. We call his people. Or we become them. At the bottom a name stitched in pen that bit the paper. Matt Protocol. Earl turned his face to the window because the room swam and he would not give the feeling the dignity of being seen. You named a damn rule after me, he muttered. We named it after what you taught us before we were born, Cole said. Pull them out of the ditch. Earl closed his eyes. In the cheap cinema of the mind, he saw Ray Reading's boot again. He saw his own hands, younger, steadier. He saw 1,000 small refusals to let a man die alone. The movie flickered and steadied. All right, he said. But you make me one promise. Name it. No speeches. Cole's grin flashed. Engines only. By 8, the surgeon came with hair damp from a rushed shower and good news settling onto his shoulders like a coat he was proud to wear. Stents holding. Labs look decent. He's got a fight in him. With rest, rehab, and stubbornness, which he appears to have in surplus, he can stand. Ride? Earl asked. The surgeon hesitated, caught between oath and mercy. Not today, he said. But the horizon isn't closed. Outside the room, a volunteer wheeled a cart past the nurse's desk. Paperbacks, puzzles, a small vase with grocery store daisies. Diesel stopped him, traded a handshake for a battered copy of The Old Man and the Sea. He tucked it under his arm like a talisman and brought it to the door, sliding it inside without comment. Maria found it an hour later, smiled and propped it on the windowsill so the old man could see the old man's boat. By noon, the parking lot looked like a festival that had agreed to behave. Locals leaned along the rope and handed over foil-wrapped casseroles, as if provisioning a siege that had turned out to be awake for fear. An old woman from the bakery downtown arrived with a tray of cinnamon rolls so heavy, Wolf grunted receiving them. My brother rode until his hearing went, she said, wiping a rogue tear with the heel of her palm. This is either for your breakfast or the nurses, you decide who needs sugar more. Wolf tore one in half, handed it back. You, she laughed. Took it, stayed a while. Lacey organized donations at the edge of the curb, envelopes in a coffee can that once held roofing nails, names scribbled on a notepad, a tally interrupted by drawings a child added of motorcycles with wings. Who's that? Lacey asked, tapping a figure on the page with a halo that looked like a tire. Guardian, the child said, and Lacey wondered at the way children know before we teach them. Around 2, Earl slept again, this time the honest nap of a body rebuilding. Cole stood, bones cracking small firecrackers in his knees, and stepped out into the brightness that had finally decided to be day. The men looked up like sunflowers tracked the source. He's good, Cole said, and 70 shoulders dropped a 1/4 inch, which is to say the mountain got lighter. Wolf passed him a cup and didn't ask what was in the room because the answer was in Cole's face. Diesel asked anyway and got his hair ruffled like a kid and grinned, because being treated young is its own mercy when the world is ancient. The reporter from last night returned with a different posture, camera lowered. I'm not here to poke, she said. I'm here to learn. Cole nodded to the hospital windows. Then point your lens there. She filmed the glass and the men reflected in it and the gap they kept clear for emergency. She filmed the bakery lady and the cinnamon icing on Wolf's beard. She filmed a nurse stepping out into sunlight to breathe and being handed the jacket Diesel had given up last night, and offering it back, and Diesel refusing with a shrug that said, This is how it works, ma'am. Late afternoon, Earl woke to shadows playing on the wall like a slow hand. He surveyed his chest, white tape, faint bruises, a map of efforts. He winced, sat, stopped, tried again. Maria hovered just enough to be caught if he fell.
He didn't fall.
Stand tomorrow, she said. Walk the next. Sit on a bike when a doctor with more gray hair than me says you can. That a medical order? That's a promise, she said. He looked to the window. The tree line burned green. Beyond the glass, the bikes were quiet but present, as if someone had parked a pact. He saw Cole on the curb, elbows on knees, the weight of leadership poured into a paper cup. He saw the others, some laughing, some not, each one a sentence in a language the town was learning to read. You still here? Earl whispered to nobody and to everyone. Still here, Cole mouthed through glass, and Earl believed him. The sun drifted toward evening, the sky doing that trick it does where it pretends to be a bruise until it remembers it's a painting. The angles of light made the bikes into sculptures. The nurses changed shifts and left with soft waves that had not been in their hands yesterday. The cafeteria ran out of coffee for the first time in a year. The security guard wrote a poem about engines in his logbook because duty and beauty sometimes share a pocket. Cole stepped inside as visiting hours began, which is to say he chose the one rule to obey that felt like a courtesy, rather than a leash. He sat. Earl turned. The monitor beeped like a heartbeat learning jazz. "Tomorrow," Cole said, "we mount up." Earl's smile gathered at the corners like old friends. "Tomorrow," he said. "But hear me, son, no speeches." Cole nodded, eyes bright in a way diesel fumes can't explain. "Engines only," he said again, making it a covenant. He stood to leave, hand on helmet, then paused. From inside his cut he pulled a small square wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it like it might break, which is how men treat things that have survived too much. A patch, crimson thread, silver edge. A redwood stitched so it looked like a spine. "Redwood Guardian," Cole said. "It's yours to bless when you're ready." Earl took it, thumb dragging slow over the thread. He pressed it to his chest above the white tape and the map of efforts and closed his eyes. "Not ready today," he said. "I know," Cole replied. "But soon." "Soon," Cole said, and he didn't hurry the word. Outside, the angels rose as one, as if some frequency only they could hear had called them to their feet. They didn't cheer. They didn't howl. They fired their engines, 1, then 5, then 70, until the parking lot trembled, and the glass carried the sound upstairs, and the monitors found their rhythm, and Maria stood at the nurse's station with her hands on the counter and let it happen, because healing and thunder are not enemies when you learn the shape of mercy. Inside the room, Earl listened and let the vibration stitch him back together. Every note of combustion was a nail in a house he could live in. He raised the patch just a little as if to catch the sound in it. "Keep the road honest," he whispered. And for the first time since the desert, since Fayetteville, since Tucson, he did not feel like a man hurrying toward an ending. He felt like the pause before another verse. Night came down clean. The engines fell to idle, then to silence. The redwoods breathed. The town slept. In the window's reflection, Earl saw 2 men sitting, one in a bed, one in a chair. He couldn't tell which one was holding up the other. He suspected it didn't matter. Outside, Wolf scribbled something on a napkin and tacked it to the bulletin board they'd made out of a cork sheet, taped to the brick by stubbornness. Diesel read it and nodded like a guy who'd just been handed a map. "Mat protocol," it said in Wolf's square hand. "Hold the line. Keep the lane holy. Engines only." And beneath it, in smaller letters that looked like they'd been written with a glove on, "We don't bury our own alone."